right, I believe we are live. It is Katie Shambliss of Loving Without Boundaries. I am so excited to be here with one of our amazing team members, B, and we have an incredible topic for you today. So if you are seeing us on social media outside of Facebook, know that we have a private online community. If you would like to come join us and be alongside other like-minded people who are also living their most authentic lives when they are coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy. You can find that on Facebook by searching for Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom, and come join 14,000 plus other people who are doing that hard work of standing up for what they value and they believe in. And it takes a lot of courage and strength and guts. And so if you are also inside that community, we honor you for being here and getting the support that you need alongside other really heart-centered driven individuals who are seeking growth and up-leveling their skill set so that they can live their best lives as well. So happy Monday to everybody. For those in the United States, we hope you had a lovely Mother's Day, however you celebrate, whether you are nurturing animals and fur babies, or you're an aunt or a godmother, or of course a mother or a grandmother. We honor you. So, and thank you for being here. And I'd love it, B, if you would start us off on our topic, which is the interplay of boundaries and standards. And thank you for giving us this beautiful topic to discuss today. I'm really excited to be here with you and for everyone who is tuning in.
Yeah, I share the same feelings, Kiri, of excitement. And this topic today is in alignment with what you shared of us being in this particular lifestyle, that it takes lots of courage and guts. So why I picked this particular topic to discuss the dynamic interaction between boundaries and standards, because especially in this really complex lifestyle where there are so many moving parts, identifying our boundaries, communicating our boundaries, and negotiating our boundaries with the boundaries of our partners or mentors or family members or whoever we have in our life, can be one of the most challenging, overwhelming, and stressful tasks to do on an ongoing basis. So my intention with discussing the interplay of boundaries and standards is that you at least take, those of you who are watching, one takeaway from this is that once you get clear on your standards and once you align yourself with your standards, then the boundary conversations can be simplified and the pain and the stress minimalized. So with that, I want to give you just one example out of the many about what boundaries and standards can mean. So standards can be those guiding principles that lie underneath in what way do I show up for myself. For example, it can be compassion, the value of compassion, or what way am I aiming to show up for others, for example, with empathy, transparency, integrity. What are those type of experiences that I want to have in my life? What's really, really important to me? For example, joyful connections. Or a standard can be, what type of person do I consider myself to be? Is that type of person, is that my identity, that which is really interconnected with the boundary as well. Like I'm someone who only lets joyful connections into my life. It's just my identity. I'm just that type of person. So while standards speak to our whats and whys, boundaries are more explicit, and they can be seen as the channels through which we communicate these particular standards, either to ourselves or to other people, either through verbal communication or non-verbal communication. What challenges I very frequently see, and I was definitely someone who struggled with this, is not having clarity on the standards that I hold dear across all areas of my life, including my relationships, or having really disempowering standards that I internalized at some point in my life. For example, I have to be in a certain way to have love, because otherwise I don't matter or my needs don't matter. So my standards can be interconnected with my belief system really greatly. And with this, Kiri, I want to give the mic over to you. What's coming for you with this topic?
Thank you. I think it's an incredible topic, and I literally even in the past week or so have had conversations with people where they realized that not only did they not have any like good boundaries, like they had poor boundaries, and therefore there was a lot of self-sabotaging type of things that were happening within themselves that was affecting their self-esteem and within their relationships. But they realized that they actually were taught to literally have no boundaries in the family that they grew up in, or through religion that they were also taught as a young individual or a young adult. And it can take a lot of work to release something that has been in your brain and in your habits for decades, right? Because we obviously are serving adults. So with adults, I mean, they've been on the planet for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades. So that's a lot that we need to work through to figure out what are those beliefs and those blocks and things that are coming up, or those patterns or those habits from the past that are no longer serving you, and be able to help them come to a completely new level of understanding, of competence, as we like to say, because we don't know what we don't know, right? So a lot of times when people reach out to us, they're at that stage, or they're also at the stage where they realize that they have real gaps in their skill set and their understanding about how to have healthy boundaries, how to have standards, and they're ready to work on that. And what I also want to say is the boundaries can be a really powerful set of work to do to get that clarity that you were talking about, B, and do the work involved, because it doesn't happen by snapping your fingers. It happens with hard work and introspection. And that's part of the deal. You know, it can be so much easier just to point the finger and blame versus have that self-reflection. But if you really want to create positive change in your life, that is a requirement. And the other thing I wanted to say is, even after you've done that work, to your point about standards, that doesn't mean that you can't keep raising your standards for more bliss, joy, and fulfillment, and then raise your standards again in a beautiful, healthy way so that you have even more bliss, joy, and fulfillment. And that's amazing too, to be able to know that the sky is the limit in terms of what you can create, but you got to start somewhere, you know? And so that's a lot of times where we're helping people, is when they're might be at rock bottom, or they're kind of like doing that climb out, and they want to do it in a quicker and a faster way. But I really love this topic. So I'll give the mic back over to you, B.
I'm so glad that you highlighted, Kiri, continue raising our standards, that it is okay. And there's something that came up for me, if I think back, where I was in the past with my standards, that I internalized from my family of origin and the environment, for example, that it's somehow part of relationships that insults are okay, verbal attacks other are okay, and basically struggling and having pain and having constant fights that lead nowhere, this is somehow okay. And guess what? This really showed up in my relationships, because this is what I was looking for, because that was my standard. I didn't blame myself for that, and there's absolutely no shaming about those internalized standards that we soak up. But I definitely felt a lot of pain. Something was out of alignment. So when I started to do that self-reflection that you talked about, when I really identified my guiding values, like what's important to me, for example, teamwork and trust, like absolutely crucial for me. There's absolutely no place for verbal attack, insults, or lying, for example. Then my standards started changing and evolving. And with that, my boundary setting simplified as well, because there's this really powerful interaction between standards and boundaries. Because if I have different standards, then I'm gonna let different types of people into my life and different type of relationships. So I get more in alignment with who I am. So there's gonna be less need to protect myself. And I really want to highlight an important aspect as well around the belief, what we believe about boundaries. So in certain contexts, it's completely legit to fear that we gotta have to protect ourselves from our environment, because we're surrounded by certain type of people that really feel like an attack on our system. So we gotta get safe. And this is where I was, because I surrounded myself with people where I had to protect myself. So my belief about boundaries was that it's about I having to fight my way through you in order to protect myself. What it did, it kept me in a state of constant defensiveness. And I also projected this onto other people, because if I defend myself through my boundaries, they're predominantly about my protection. That I thought that if you set a boundary, if my partner sets a boundary, that's an attack on me, because that was my starting belief. What it turned out to be, and it's 180 really, when it comes to standards and boundaries, is my standards got really high and they're still evolving, and how I look at boundaries change. My beliefs around boundaries change. So now they're simply a beautiful way of expressing myself. They're a beautiful
Mhm.
form of self-care, for example, such as sleep or having a good food or going to out an event that really fills my cup up. And that's also a place of connection. So instead of protection, I moved into boundaries are a point of connection and a beautiful
Mm.
form of self-care. And this is now how I see the boundaries of other people. And I'm grateful when they set them. So
Mhm.
that's an incredible shift, and it all trickled down from me changing my standards of what I allow into my life and how I show up and what I show up for. What deals do I show up for? Am I showing up for crappy relationship deals or really good, exquisite quality relationship deals? And this all came from the standards.
Mhm. Yeah, such beautiful work, Bean. It's been such an honor to be able to watch you move through all of that on your own. And I think there's a lot of misconception or myths around boundaries, or fear. There can be fear around setting boundaries, or also if a loved one sets a boundary with us, we can very easily slip into taking it personally, like, oh, there's something wrong with our connection because they're setting this boundary. But so I really love what you shared there, that a lot of times people might think of boundaries as demands, but they're not. They're actually a form of self-care, of taking care of oneself. So you can honor that other person for taking care of themselves, just like you can honor you for looking after yourself, because it's your responsibility to do so, right? Not anyone else's. Boundaries are also not ultimatums or threats or meant to punish, control, or retaliate. So both in terms of when you're expressing them, but also how is somebody telling you about their boundary? Are they doing it respectfully and with compassion, and are you writing a story that it's a threat, or what's actually happening? That's some of the work that we do with our clients. Boundaries are also not mean as long as they are being expressed respectfully. They're not selfish. It's protecting your well-being and everyone else's. And they also can be flexible. What might be a boundary today might change later. But without that understanding, boundaries can become like a battlefield of fighting between two people, what we call the field of battle, versus getting on what we call the field of understanding or non-judgment, when we're really honoring the other person, accepting who they are, understanding where they're coming from, and remembering that boundaries are about limits. They are about our self-care. And it doesn't have to turn into painful relationship cycles where, and I've even spoken to somebody recently where they're in like this abuse cycle, where there can be a period of calm, and then there's some tension that's coming up in their relationship, and then it escalates into this kind of vicious relationship cycle, and then there's the kind of period of where there's reconciliation, but then it just keeps happening over and over again, that abuse cycle. And those can be some really painful cycles that can happen. And that's also where boundaries can be really important. And sometimes a boundary might mean not just spending less time with somebody. That's a boundary. Spending less and less time with somebody who maybe doesn't align with your values or who you are. But sometimes boundaries might have to be when you part ways with somebody, or you go no contact with somebody. And that can be challenging, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it when you need to, whether that's family or an intimate partner or a friend. Those sometimes can be the act of holding that boundary may be painful, but you're doing it for maybe your own self-care or the higher and greater good of everybody involved. Or maybe that person needs to stand on their own 2 feet instead of you going in to rescue them all the time or enabling maybe an addiction that they have. That can happen as well. So those are just some examples of different painful relationship cycles that I've seen when I'm talking to people, or I've even seen in my own life. I know you know about that, B, where I've had to set some boundaries around certain relationships that are simply just friendships, but those are just as important, and they can also be just as detrimental if you don't know how to have standards about what you're allowing in your life and who you're allowing in your life and how much access to you they have. So I'll give the mic back over to you.
Beautifully unpacked, Kiri. I also want to add another angle to the painful relationship cycles. It's when it comes to standards, we might run into unintentionally that pattern that we have double standards. That can also cause conflict and prolonged pain in relationships. For example, that's my standard for other people or my expectation for others that they show up with transparency, but I allow myself certain lies here and there, or not disclose certain informations that would be relevant for the other person to know in order to for them give their enthusiastic consent to the relationship with me. So that can be one form of a double standard. Or for example, for my standard for myself is compassion and empathy. Same is for for my nesting partner, but for my metamour it's that there's no compassion, no empathy, but I show up with judgments. So that both short-term and long-term can lead to painful, toxic cycles for everyone involved. Or another aspect to pain in relationships can be what trickles down from standards is when we have different standards for ourselves for how we show up in different areas of our life. In itself, it's okay. But for example, if in my profession, that's my standard that I show up, without emotions, like more clinical, because that's what my profession requires. And I bring those particular standards that get expressed through my verbal and nonverbal boundaries in a relationship, that I'm emotionless. I'm only looking through logic. I want the solution right now. It works brilliantly in one area of my life, but maybe in relationships it's not gonna work as well. So we really want to get clear on what type of values and standards do I hold dear and want to keep myself to in different areas of my life, and are they relevant? Are they serving me in those particular areas of life?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for adding that on. That was a really great way to just expand into that topic. And this is something that is very near and dear to me, partly because I'm a human being, right? So I've had to work on my own boundaries and my own standards, and it's been created such awareness, and just watching my own journey of raising my standards, and know that I'm about to have my birthday. I'm about to turn 55 in a few short days. Actually, I can't believe it. And know that this is an ongoing journey. So there's no judgment, no shame around this. We all have areas of growth. And if I can do it, and if B can do it, so can all of you. So I would say step one here is to understand that first you need to identify what are some of your highest values. Maybe what are some needs that come up for you that are really important to you. And then from there, you can figure out what are your boundaries. How can you identify what your standards are? What are you willing to tolerate? What are you not willing to tolerate? What comes up for you? And how can you show up as the more empowered version of you? That's a lot of the work that we do with our clients, instead of when you might go into feeling like a victim, or like life is happening to you and you're feeling very disempowered. But know that you absolutely can learn to get new skills, develop new standards, healthy boundaries, get the communication skills to be able to give voice to that and be able to say it with respect and compassion and consideration for your loved ones, and build relationships where there is mutual respect, mutual consideration, and affection, where you really feel like you're both supporting each other, and you can learn to both define and establish and communicate really clear boundaries. Anything you'd like to add on to that, B?
Kiri, I love the proactive nature of what you just mentioned, like identify your values and then establish like clear boundaries, learn how to communicate them. So what are your boundaries and learn how to communicate them? What's coming up for me is that once we have that guiding star or what are our most important values, that's really crucial for us to have for fulfilled in life, that can indeed help with simplifying our boundaries. So I want to give you one a really helpful tactic, at least something that helped me, and it might help you as well. Like identify your top 5 guiding values, like what's like really important to you. And when there's a challenging situation, decision paralysis, you don't know what to do, you feel overwhelmed, let it be a relationship decision or some type of other choice, what can really help simplify the decisions or boundaries is you going back to those 5 top values of yours that you really want to have as your guiding principles. So having that clarity of values and standards, it not only can get us out of overwhelm and simplify decision making, it can also create more effortlessness around boundary setting. Plus, once we know what we really want, then our brain is gonna turn the direction in that way, and we're gonna get attracted to those type of situations, and we're only gonna say yes to those type of situations that are in alignment with our highest values. So we're having more alignment in our lives between what's inside and what's outside of ourselves.
Thank you for that, B. That was really beautiful. So, if what we're saying resonates with you, and I'm really loving this topic, and I honor the people that are watching here live, and anybody who's watching the recording later, if this is resonating with you, and you realize that this is an area that you would like to grow in, that you realize that you could really use some expert guidance, and you'd like to have a mentor or 2 or 3 help guide you through this, know that you are not alone. We work with amazing human beings every single day that we are absolutely honored to serve. And it all started by them booking an initial consultation call. And I put the link up if you would like to do that. So if you want to have a conversation where we see what are you struggling with, whether it's your boundaries, your standards, your communication, or even your emotional intelligence, knowing how to self-soothe when big emotions naturally come up when we're talking about open relationships or polyamory or stepping into your most authentic version of you, that can be very scary. Know that you're not alone. So if you would like to have a conversation with me, you can book that at lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and simply look in the calendar that will come up, find a time slot that works for you, and jump on that call. There'll be just a very short application for you to fill out just to give me some context for our conversation. And once we get on that call, we'll get a lot of clarity about what are your biggest struggles and challenges in your relationships and in your quest to live your most authentic life. We'll also, more importantly, talk about where you ideally would like to be. And if I feel I can help you close that gap from where you are now to where you want to be, we can talk about different ways to work together to do just that. Or if we're not a fit or the timing doesn't feel right for some reason, I will let you know that as well. And I will do everything in my power to steer you in the best direction for you so that you really get served on that call and find a path forward that works for you for where you are at. So again, that's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. If you would like to get some more expert help and guidance, working with an expert coach who really cares and a whole team that really has your back. So B, anything you'd like to add there or end us off with?
I just want to encourage everyone, when you look into yourself in your self-reflecting moments and identify what's really important to you, and you notice some misalignment in your life, for example, the type of partners you have, or how have you showed up, maybe it's not fully in alignment with how you really want to show up, really give yourself grace in the process. So approach this particular topic with the utmost compassion and gentleness. And if you notice that something is out of alignment with where you want to be a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, no one has to be wrong. No person has to be blamed or has to be wrong. It's just simply a way of saying that we might not fit together to continue this particular journey together, and that's okay. To not have the same truths, to not believe the same things, we can part ways in a really beautiful way, honoring each other's journey and where we're at.
Mhm. Thank you for that. So, yes, if there's anything you get from this Facebook Live, we want you to make sure that you have a sense of hope, that there is help out there, that you can work on these areas. We all have different areas to grow. So, again, there's no shame around that. It's just getting the right help you need. Because, like we said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes the right person, the right mentor at the best moment in your life where you really need to turbocharge can help you take a quantum leap forward instead of what we sometimes call being in the slow, painful lane. So either way, we honor you. And again, if you want to become part of our community, look at our Facebook group, which is Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. I also have about 250 podcasts that you can find on our website, lovingwithoutboundaries.com. And you can also get on our mailing list to learn about when we might be, we're doing local meetups here in the Washington, D.C. area about 3 or 4 times a year now, which has been super exciting. So know that we care about you and your success, and we've got your back. So with that, I will just say happy Monday to you. We hope your week is off to a great start. And again, leave you with a message of hope for the future. So thank you for being here and for listening. Bye for now.
Bye.